Hello, greetings. Welcome to our next lesson. So, for this lesson, we are starting a completely brand new topic, brand new section, brand new everything. So, if you do a cover page, then you can do one for financial maths. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with today. So, financial maths is chapter 9 inside your book, your textbook, and it starts on page 281. Okay, so the heading for today, the first lesson that we're going to look at is interest rates. Okay, and then you'd write also the date, which is going to be the 13th of May. Okay, so what we look at specifically in financial maths is that we are trying to find how money grows over time. Okay, that is what is called interest. Okay, so if something has interest, it means that it's going to increase in value over time. Okay, so examples are like savings accounts, investments, but it can also go for accounts that gain interest over time, such as loans, short or long term. Okay, but the main thing is that we're going to have an amount of money that's going to change over time. Okay, so there are two types of interest. Interest rates. Okay, the first type of interest is what we call simple interest, or SI. Okay, so simple interest is calculated using the original amount. So it's calculated using only the original amount of money that is saved or borrowed. So what that means is it means that you take a certain amount of money, so let's say 100 Rand, and you put it into a savings account. And into that savings account, you want it to grow for a period of 3 years. Now, you're told that the interest rate is going to be 10% per year, simple interest. So, what that means is it means that I need to consider 3 years. So, after the first year, I'm going to take, well, I have 100 Rand, and I work out what 10% of that 100 Rand is, which is going to be 10 Rand. So after the first year, I have 100 Rand plus 10 Rand, which is just 110 Rand. So that's how much I would have at the end of the first year. Now after the second year, I still have the 110 Rand in my account. But now I need to add it, I need to work out however much interest I have. So that's this 10 Rand here. But because it's simple interest, I'm still going to keep using that 10 Rand because remember it said it's interest calculated using the original amount. So the interest after 2 years is still going to be 100 times 10%, which is going to be 10. So we add that and we get 120. Then after 3 years, I'm going to have 120 Rand in my account, but I'm still adding the interest rate from the original amount, which was 100 Rand. So 10% of 100 Rand is still going to be 10 Rand. So together it makes 130 Rand. So after 3 years, he would have been, the money would sit at 130 Rand. Okay. So that's what it means when we talk about simple interest. Okay, we talk about money that's going to grow per year at a certain percentage. Now, if it is simple interest, it means that the interest is calculated using the original amount of money only. So it means that we can see that interest amount, the 10 Rand, stays the same every year. Okay, now let's look at the other type of interest. So the second type of interest is compound interest. So with compound interest, or CI, this type of interest is calculated on the original sum plus the interest that already has been earned, has already been earned. So basically the interest is worked out on the final amount each year. So let's imagine we have the exact same example as before. So we have 100 Rand that I'm going to deposit into my account, and I'm going to see how it grows over 3 years. And I want to know how much I'm going to have at the end. So after 1 year, I can see that, I'm going to have 100 Rand, which is going to be added to the 10% compound interest. So now it's 10% of the amount that I have at the end of the year. So the amount of money that I have at the end of the year is 100 Rand. So I'm going to have 100 plus 10, which is going to be 110. So notice that after 1 year, both simple and compound interest is the same. Now let's consider after 2 years. So after 2 years, I would have had 110 Rand in my account. Now I need to add the interest to that. So it's going to be 10%, but it has to be of the final amount at the beginning of the year, or at the end of the year. So we are calculating it on the sum plus the interest that's already been earned. So the amount that I have is 110. So the 10% is on the 110. So if I put that now, if I calculate that, it'll be plus 11 Rand. So if I put that, you can calculate that, but it should be quite straightforward. You're going to have 121 Rand. Okay, so notice now the amount is different. Okay, because it's been compounded. So let's see now after 3 years. So after 3 years, I'm going to have 121 in the account, plus now whatever I've accumulated, which is going to be 10% of that amount that I already have accumulated, which is 121. So 10% of 121 is just going to be 12 Rand and 10 cents. Okay, calculator, if you worked it out, will just be 12,1, but remember we work in cents, which is always 2 decimal places, so it's actually 10 cents. So you add that together and you will get 133 and 10 cents. Okay, so notice that it's compounding, meaning that the interest rate is going to change. The amount of interest that's accumulated changes every year because it is based on the amount that you have. Okay, so that is the main difference between the two types of interest. Okay, but now if we think about calculating it like this, it's quite long to calculate it after every single year. And for long-term investments like 20 years, we can't calculate it 20 times. Okay, that's just going to be too tedious. So there are equations then that you learn in order to work these interest rates out. So for the simple interest, there's a formula that you must learn. And that formula is A is equal to P brackets 1 plus I times N. Okay, I'll explain to you what each one represents now. So the A value is the accumulated amount. So basically this is the amount that you have at the end. The P value is for the principal amount. Okay, so this is the original amount, or the amount that you had in the beginning. Okay, then I is the interest rate which is a percentage, and n is for the number of years. It's also referred to as the time period or the period. Okay, so for compound interest, the equation looks similar, but there is a difference which changes the way it's calculated. So the compound interest formula is A, which is equal to P brackets 1 plus I, close brackets, and the brackets is to the power of n. Okay, in both circumstances, these descriptions mean the same thing. Okay, so let's consider an example. I think this would be the first example because the one at the top doesn't really count. Okay, so in this example, it says 5,000 Rand is invested for 3 years. Calculate the accumulated amount at the end of the 3 years if the interest rate is, and then there's 2. So the first one is if the interest rate is 3.75% per annum. So this is per annum, which is the same as per year. Simple interest. And the second one is the same, 3.75% per annum, compound interest. Okay, so the first one, A, you'll start by writing out the formula. Now, because it is simple interest, you're going to use the formula A, which is equal to P1 plus I times N. Now, you're going to have to identify in the question what each value is. So clearly, I can see that the 5,000 is going to be my principal amount. So I'm going to make a little note of that this is my principal amount. Then it says for 3 years, so that is the N value, which is 3, okay, for 3 years. Now it says to calculate the interest rate, so these are all the I's. Okay, so let's go back to the question. So they want us to find out the accumulated amount. So the P value is 5,000. 1 plus the interest is 3.75% multiplied by the year, which is 3 years. Okay, so you're going to take your calculator and you say 5,000 brackets 1 plus. Now, this 3.75 you're going to use the percentage on your calculator. So if you look, it's above the bracket, the left bracket. So if you press shift and the left bracket, you'll get the percentage. Okay, times 3. So you would have got an answer of 5,562,5, and then don't forget to put the 0 because it's cents. Okay, so that's how we work out the amount using compound interest. Now let's try simple interest. Now let's try compound interest. So A is equal to P1 plus I to the power of N, because it's compound interest now. So the A is equal to the principal amount stays the same, 1 plus the interest rate is still 3.75%, but now it's to the power of 3. So you're going to put the same thing in your calculator, but now to the power of 3. Make sure you put it in your calculator so you know you're getting the same answers that I do. You should get 5,583,86. Okay, so you can see that there is a difference in the amounts that were given. Okay, so now I'm going to pose a second question. So let's see. I will say to you, example 2 will be to use both of the above interest rates to calculate the total interest rate received in each question. So they want to know how much interest was actually received. So if you would like to know the interest received, so this is how much interest rate you grew, or how much your money grew by. You're going to find that by saying, well, the interest rate received, you can calculate by taking the A value and subtracting it from the P value. Because if you take the final amount minus the initial amount, you will get the amount that it has grown by. So let's look. The first one, you got an answer of 5,562.50. I'm going to expand the question slightly. So it says use both of the above interest rates to calculate the total interest rates received, and then I'm going to add per year. So I want to know how much interest they received every year. So this 5,562 is the accumulated amount. The original amount was 5,000. So that means that the interest received is going to be equal to the 5,562.50 minus the original 5,000 that we had. Then we get an answer of 562.50 received. But now if I want to know how much was received every year, I want you to take a moment and think, if this is how much I received in 3 years, how would I work out how much I would receive per year? So take a moment to think about it. So the way I would figure it out is I would divide by 3. So I would take 562.50 and I would divide by 3 and I would get 187.50 each year. Okay, so for B, okay, B, you won't be able to work it out each year using the same equation because you'd only be able to work out an average. So we would take the 5583.86, which was the accumulated amount that we had earned using the compound interest, and we're going to subtract that from the 5,000. So we'd have 5583.86 minus the 5,000 Rand, which is going to be equal to 583.86 Rand. Okay, so if I ask you which loan should he, which investment should he take out, I would hope that you would say the compound interest one in this case, because you can clearly see that the compound interest gains more money over the 3 years. Okay, so all you have to do is just read your question, highlight the amount that you need, and thereafter you complete it. Okay, so for your homework, you're going to complete exercise 9.1 on page 284. I want you to do number A, number B, and number C. Okay, you don't have to write out the question. Okay, it's up to you. You can if you want to, but you don't really have to in this case. Otherwise, you're just going to be taking a lot of unnecessary time. So you can just make the little notes in your textbook using pencil. Otherwise, if you really want to, you can write down the question, but it's not really necessary. Okay, so otherwise then that's it. So make sure that you rewatch the video if you need further elaboration on how this works and what's the different interest rates are and how they are calculated. But it's important for you to understand firstly what the interest rates are, how they are different to one another, and then how to calculate using both equations and to substitute. And the main thing is to remember that the interest rate is always a percentage, so don't forget to put the percentage symbol when you are doing your calculations on your calculator. Okay, that is it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one.